Welcome to Beatsource Tech. My name is Mojaxx, and over the past few years I've reviewed a number of studio monitors from Adam Audio. Today I'm looking at the most expensive model that I've tested to date, the three-way A8H. It was a little over a year ago when I reviewed the A7V from Adam Audio. That was the successor to the very popular A7X, but it didn't hit the market alone. It was accompanied by a whole new line of other A-series monitors. Those are all designed for different applications and placements. The A7V is a traditional near-field monitor, there are compact options in the A4V and A44H, and then two models which are more mid-field designs, the A77H and the one we're looking at today, the A8H. I spent a lot of time on my A7V review, and I'm still very happy with the way I broke down the tech aspects of the A-series in it, so much so that I'm afraid that's going to be required viewing if you want the full story on these monitors, because there's not a lot of point going over the same stuff here in detail. The A-series are all the same from that tech and connectivity point of view. As a quick refresher though, the A-series can all connect to your local network via Ethernet, and you can then make a huge number of adjustments via the company's A-Control software, like changing the EQ and switching profiles on the fly. Each model has the same three main voicing profiles. There's Pure, which is accurate and neutral, ideal for jobs like mixing and mastering. UNR, which stands for Uniform Natural Response, is closer to the preceding AX series and is more dynamic and engaging, ideal for composition, production and general listening. And then there's EXT or External, which is the most interesting of all, as it can be used with SonarWorks Sound ID reference software. To leverage that, to use a measurement mic to create a correction profile specifically for your room, which can then be exported directly to the A-series monitors using A-Control. Once exported, that profile lives in the monitors and you don't need to have the SonarWorks software running on your computer to use it. It's always accessible right there in the hardware with zero computer overhead or latency. I did go much deeper into all of that in my A7V review, and it works exactly the same on each A-series model, so yeah, definitely check that one out if you want to know more. Suffice to say though, from a tech perspective, all of this stuff is killer. Moving on to the A8H itself, as you might have guessed, the H stands for horizontal. I don't know about you, but I've always loved the look of horizontally oriented monitors. They just give off a really intimidating kind of vibe. What's interesting, of course, is that thanks to the rotatable waveguide on the A-series monitors, you can even use vertical models like the A7V on their sides. And you could also, if you wanted, rotate the tweeter on the A8H and use that in a vertical fashion, so that does offer a welcome degree of adaptability to different setups. Because of this horizontal design, they are offered in specific left and right versions, and you'll need to buy one of each if you want a pair. In terms of pricing, street price in the US is $1,500 each, or $3,000 for the pair, which is a hefty step up from the A7V, which is $800 or $1,600 for a pair. One thing to consider with the A8H, it is a big boy, and not just because of the extra mid-range driver. It's just shy of 11 inches in height, 15 inches wide and 13 inches deep, bigger than any 8-inch monitors I've tried before. It's heavy too, at 30 pounds, more than 10 pounds heavier than the A7V. This means you'll have to use due care and consideration when mounting them. If they were going to be my long-term monitors, I would definitely be looking to upgrade my monitor stands to something more beefy. But that's kind of the point though. The A8H is designed for mid-field use, not near-field, so if you're working in a small studio space with your monitors on compact stands right behind your desk, or even on the desk itself, then this model isn't the one for you. The A8H needs room to breathe in order to get the best out of it, and that was borne out in my testing. In the lab, which is a big room with loads of space around the monitors, the A8Hs absolutely shone. I'll talk more on the sound shortly. But when I used them in my home studio, which is a much smaller space, they were just too much monitor for the room. There's a phrase used in mountain biking about being overbiked, riding a long travel downhill bike on a gentle cross-country trail, for example. And with the A8H, I feel like there's a definite danger of being over-monitored. If you choose this model because it's more expensive and therefore must be better by default, and then you use it in a tiny project or bedroom studio, that would be a mistake. You definitely need to go for the model which fits your space best first and foremost. Looking at the build of the A8H, it's very solid indeed. I ended up picking up a pair of A7Vs after I reviewed them, and they've been my main monitors ever since. In that time, I've had no qualms about the build whatsoever. The vinyl wrapped MDF enclosures look as good as new and have remained rattle free, and the A8H is built exactly the same. The cabinet is front ported, which means it's not too fussy about being near a wall, and I've heard no sign of any chuffing coming from that. One aspect of the A series I really appreciate is the mounting points found on each cabinet. By using Adam Audio's own mounting plates, they can then be attached to a wide variety of stands, brackets and truss systems from brands like K&M, ISO Acoustics and Power Drive. The only thing I don't like about that setup is the price of the plates, which at around $100 each is a bit much for my liking. As per the A-Control setup, the rear of the A8H looks much the same as the other A-series monitors, just laid out a bit differently. You have 4 buttons to adjust it to your space and taste: bass, desk, presence and treble. There's a button to manually switch between the different voicings, and a level control. Power is delivered by a standard IEC socket, and there's an Ethernet port for A-Control, plus there are 2 inputs, balanced XLR and unbalanced RCA. I do appreciate that you can have both inputs connected at the same time, and switch between them as you like. As with the A7V, the A8H uses a multi-layer mineral fiber woofer, which is agile and responsive, even when being worked very hard. It's 8 inches in diameter, as the name implies, and it has a large 1.5-inch voice coil. It goes low too, down to 31 Hz. I've seen differing opinions about the need for a sub with this model, but I certainly didn't feel the need for one. At full blast, the A8H has the doors shaking in the lab, even on stands. The mid-range driver is pretty unique. Based on tech that Adam first used in the top-end S series, it's a dome/cone hybrid, which combines the linear response of a dome driver with the high excursion of a cone. It's made of the same multi-layer mineral fiber as the woofer, and it features an underhung magnet system that lives inside the voice coil. Then there is the Extended Accelerated Ribbon Technology, or XART tweeter. This is identical to the one on the A7V, so I won't go too deeply into it here, but having spent over a year with it, I can tell you that my affection for it has only grown over that time. The key factor for me is that it's very detailed without being fatiguing, with its agility and dynamics really being second to none. As with the rest of the A series, the one found on the A8H is handmade in Germany, and the craftsmanship is spot on. It's surrounded by the high frequency propagation system HPS waveguide, which is made of resin and glass fibers and helps create a wide sweet spot for the A8H, as well as reducing reflections in the vertical space. That's why you have to rotate it if you're going to switch between horizontal or vertical setups. 3 drivers means 3 amplifiers, and that's what you get in the A8H. The woofer is driven by a 200 watt RMS Class D or PWM amp. Then for the mid-range and tweeter, you have 2 Class AB amps with 55 and 15 watts RMS respectively. Adam Audio have clearly matched up the amps and drivers very well, as at no point did I feel like the amps were being driven too hard by the drivers or vice versa. It was certainly interesting comparing the overall sound of the A8H with the A7V. On paper and in practice they do go louder for sure, but the extra driver for the mid-range definitely adds a new dimension to the reproduction of vocals and other sounds in that area. When listening to heavily layered tracks, the separation is just a touch more precise, and with more minimal acoustic tracks, the vocals shine through just that little bit more. The extra driver also allows the woofer to focus more on the real low end. The crossover point is at 400 Hz, and so that helps with the dynamics of the bass too. As always with Adam Audio monitors, the stereo imaging is superb, the soundstage is wide and well defined, and what really surprised me is that despite having 3 drivers placed across a fairly large fascia, each A8H really does feel like one cohesive unit. Close your eyes and you could be listening to just a single point source, and that's down to clever cabinet design as well as that balance between the 3 drivers. Overall, the sound quality of the A8H is simply breathtaking. Throw them into pure mode or switch to a custom profile you've made with SonarWorks and the accurate flat sound is perfect for really analytical work. Or change up to the UNR voicing and you have a monitor which is truly a joy to listen to for extended periods. One note for the DJs watching, as this is a DJ focused channel, that's the real beauty of the A series for those who are combining production work and DJing in the studio. Thanks to the A-Control software, you can easily switch between the appropriate voicings for both applications without even having to touch the monitors themselves. Is the A8H worth the substantial cost premium over the A7V? Well, that's very much dependent on 2 main factors. Firstly, do you actually need that level of clarity and detail, considering the A7V already does a great job in that regard? And secondly, do you work in a big enough space to actually make the most of the larger, louder model? For me, the answer to the first question is no, and so although I do have a big space to work with, I could never justify the extra cost. If you're answering yes to both questions though, yeah. The A8H is pretty special. Truth be told, I've had these monitors here for months and months. This review is well overdue. Mainly that's because more time-sensitive stuff has come up in the meantime. I reviewed the A7Vs when the A series first launched, which meant that this video, as more of a companion piece to that, wasn't as urgent as some other projects. but also I think maybe even on a more subconscious level, I've kind of gone slow on this one because now that this video is done, they'll go back to Adam Audio, and that makes me a bit sad. Not because I'll regret switching back to my A7Vs, I love those, but because I know there's a high probability I won't ever buy monitors of this quality, as for what I do in the studio, they would be largely unnecessary. The A8H is simply on a different level from all of the other monitors I've tested when it comes to audio performance. There was a definite jump between the T-Series and the A-Series for sure, but the addition of that extra mid-range driver on here does elevate the A8H over the two-way models in the A-Series as well. In the end, if you have the budget for a pair of A8Hs and the space to get the best out of them, then I can fully recommend them to you. The superbly detailed sound and awesome tech integration makes them a fantastic choice for a lot of studios. But just take care that you don't end up over-monitored, because that's something that does seem like a very real possibility. Thank you for watching this episode of Beatsource Tech. I do hope you've enjoyed it or found it useful. If you have, please give the video a thumbs up and make sure you subscribe to the channel and you turn on notifications to make sure you don't miss any future videos. I'll see you next time.